I'm Mark Halperin.
And I'm John Heilemann. And with all due respect to Vladimir Putin, happy 63rd birthday, stud. We hope it's a blast. Zidnyom Rajdenia, Vladimir. And speaking of Russian, Joe Biden is not. Rushing, that is, to get into the race. Today, his supporters over at Draft Biden put out this ad that highlights his personal story. And the latest Quinnipiac poll also has good news for Biden in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Florida, where he's viewed as the most honest and trustworthy candidate or potential candidate on the Democratic side. Hillary Clinton viewed as the least. With all of that in mind, please, we invite you to take a look at our new Bloomberg Politics Purple Strategies focus groups starring undecided Democrats who we spoke with on Monday night in Iowa and New Hampshire. Tonight, as I said, part one is the Democrats. We'll do Republicans tomorrow, but for tonight, the Democrats and what they think about whether Joe Biden should run. How many people in the room want Joe Biden to get in this race? Only one out of you.
I'm thinking if I was forced, I'd say yes, but I'd have to think about it.
I'm leaning more towards yes, but uncertain.
And raise your hand if you think Joe Biden's qualified to be president.
And qualified? Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say qualified.
Yeah. Bob, you don't think he's qualified to be president?
I worry about his temperament a little bit and some of the decisions that he makes.
What are your reasons for not wanting Joe Biden to get in? Kyle, I'll start with you.
I really can't put my finger on it. I really don't have a good reason why I don't think he should run.
Right. Richard, why do you not want Joe Biden in the race?
I don't think his heart would be in it.
You don't think his heart would be in it?
No.
Because
he's not in it now.
I'm not sure he would make the best president for us. I worry sometimes about some of the things that he's done and said.
He's a little bit, wishy-washy with some things, and I don't know. I mean, he seems like a really fun guy, but I don't know as, the commander-in-chief would be the best president.
I don't know that we're going for fun guy right now.
Yeah.
He almost seems like a guy you wouldn't mind going and catching a game, having
like you
a few
see
beers
the
with.
Pictures of him having a birthday party with his kids, and him and Obama walking around with super soakers and stuff like that. That's funny and that's great, but I don't think as a president he would be, I don't know if he'd be able to stand up.
Shelby, no Joe Biden.
I think he's a really good support person, but I think he does have such a big heart that he can't be the face of the United States that he needs to be. But he's really smart and talented, so he's that good person to have, behind the scenes.
Bernice, no Joe Biden for you either.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with exactly what she said, and I just don't feel like the fire is there. It's not catching like some of the rest of the candidates.
I don't feel like people trust him. He needs to kind of gain a little more. Maybe he doesn't have the confidence. I don't know. People just don't seem to be as drawn to him, and I think he'd have a hard time accomplishing things.
Right. So are you thinking about more like his personality or his positions on things? What are you basing?
Yeah, his lack of commitment, I guess, to positions. Like she said, he's maybe a little wishy-washy. He doesn't kind of go after certain topics the same way.
Ken?
I'd like to see him throw his hat in the ring and see how he speaks when he's, a real candidate.
What else is he indecisive about? How do you know when it comes to other things? Is he going to be like, well, is it the right thing to do, or should I do it, or should I give it a shot at doing it? How do you know he's not strong about things, and we need somebody that's going to be strong and aggressive.
I have to tell a personal story. Our son died. I know there's no way that he could focus on what he needs to focus on for 5 years, probably. But I would like to see him run just to make the debate good, but I wouldn't want him to be president.
I just don't think he brings anything to the field that we don't already have, so it just complicates things in a way that I don't find valuable or helpful.
If he got in now and said, I'm all in, I'm determined, I've decided, would that allay your concerns about whether he was wishy-washy?
No. We're already getting to the point where we're having the Democratic debates coming up right now. He still hasn't decided if he's all in. At this point, you should know. You should have known a number of years ago. What happens if something happens to Obama? He becomes president. Is he not going to be ready for it when that happens? Like, if that happens?
Great point. Yeah.
If he can't, go all in, what does that say about him? How am I supposed to believe he's going to be?
That's a great point, though. Being vice president, you should already know you should be ready to be president regardless, because that's your job if something happens. So talking about running to be president and not sure if you want to do it, he should already be ready.
Our thanks to St. Anselm College in Manchester, New Hampshire, and Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, for hosting us for these focus groups. Mark, you and I are both big advocates of getting outside the media echo chamber to find out what real Americans and real voters are saying about the race. These Joe Biden focus groups prove the value of that more than almost anything. This was a huge surprise, given everyone in the media echo chamber says there's a huge clamor for Biden to run. Turns out, at least in Iowa and New Hampshire, with the people we talked to, no clamor.
Well, it's not just the echo chamber, it's the polls as well.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Quinnipiac poll that shows Biden doing well. It's clear that in those two states where Democrats are paying close attention, these two groups at least have real reservations about whether he should run, if he ran, how he'd do, and how he'd do as president.
Well, and I'll say, you know, as we heard them say, they kind of think that his indecision, not getting in the race, signifies weakness and uncertainty. They think he's a good vice president, but more of a buddy than a top dog. The most striking thing, though, we played them. We didn't show it here, but we played them that clip of Joe Biden with Stephen Colbert. Got a lot of attention in Washington, New York, other places. People thought he looked great, authentic, human. These people in my group, and I think in your group, looked at that and said, that guy isn't emotionally pulled together enough right now to run for president, let alone be president.
Now, Donald Trump said before he got in the race and his poll numbers were low, when I get in the race, my poll numbers are going to get up. There's this conventional wisdom about Joe Biden. His best day is now. If he got in the race, his numbers would go down. Hillary Clinton sent a little flare his way with Savannah Guthrie on the Today Show on Monday saying if he gets in, there's rough and tumble. It's possible if Joe Biden got in this race, particularly in the debates, performed well, his numbers would go up. And some of those people who now showed no enthusiasm for him might show enthusiasm.
It's possible, although it's also true when Hillary Clinton sends a flare that way, it's also an indication of what kind of incoming he would take for real if he gets into this race. I think the Clinton people who are restrained about going after Bernie Sanders would be a lot less restrained about going after Joe Biden. We've heard about reports about opposition research already underway. I know the vice president himself is personally concerned about some attacks that might be coming at certain members of his family. We have to look out for that. And so he could end up maybe getting a bump up when he first gets in, but then brought back down to earth.
The other thing that these groups remind you of is Iowa and New Hampshire is so important. Biden may not get in before Iowa and New Hampshire. Right. There's a scenario in this crazy year of Trump, year of Carson, that he could wait to see how she does in Iowa and New Hampshire, let Sanders rough her up in Iowa and New Hampshire, win one or both, and then there'll be a clamor within the party. Those people now may not like Joe Biden, but Democrats may be looking for a savior. That could be Joe Biden later on.
All right. When we come back, what Iowans and New Hampshireites told us about Hillary Clinton, her record, and her personality after this.
Earlier today, in an interview with Judy Woodruff of PBS's NewsHour, Hillary Clinton came out against the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal because she says there are too many, quote, unanswered questions.
What I know about it as of today, I am not in favor of what I have learned about it. And there's one other element I want to make because I think it's important. Trade agreements don't happen in a vacuum. And in order for us to have a competitive economy in the global marketplace, there are things we need to do here at home that help raise wages.
So Clinton's new position in opposition runs counter to what she had advocated as Secretary of State, but it does clear the decks of one big issue ahead of the first Democratic debate next Tuesday night between Clinton and the active Democratic candidate. So focus on Clinton now. Here's our Clinton installment of the new Bloomberg Politics Purple Strategies focus groups John and I did on Monday in Iowa and New Hampshire. Hillary Clinton, 3 words or fewer.
Experience and knowledge.
I would say experienced and caring.
Hillary Clinton.
Probably win.
Still impressive.
If you had a family situation and you could call any of those 3 Democrats for help, which one would you call and why?
Hillary. She seems like the most genuinely concerned.
She's a mom.
Yeah.
She's well connected as well.
If you had to choose one of these Democratic candidates to go out to dinner with, who would it be?
Hillary. She's such an accomplished female leader who, in the face of defeat, has continued to persevere.
What do you think she'd order?
Glass of wine for sure. So
maybe lobster.
Okay.
Looks like a lobster gal.
Who can tell me something she's been put a specific policy out on in this campaign? What's an issue where she's put out a detailed policy? Anybody? How many of you were bothered by her use of a private email account as Secretary of State? Raise your hand. No one was bothered by that?
Just a little bit.
Little bit. So 2 of you bothered a little bit. The rest of you not bothered at all by it. How many of you think she's being not totally forthcoming right now about what she did? One. Anybody else?
Not necessarily not forthcoming, but she's taking ownership. But it took her a while to get to that point.
Why didn't she just own it in the first place? And then she wouldn't have had to have all those different occasions where she had to address it.
I believe that she thinks she screwed up, or she's been told, hey, act like you screwed up and admit it, own it, but she just isn't believable to me.
How many of you think this email thing has hurt her politically? Raise your hand, please.
Yeah.
So you all think it's hurt her politically, but none of you are bothered by it. So, Bob, how do you explain that?
The other party has to find a weak link, and that's hers.
Talk a little bit about what role you think Bill Clinton should have in this presidential campaign.
I don't think it needs to be as visual.
I think he needs to take a little bit of a step back so voters aren't thinking this is going to be Bill Clinton's third term.
I still feel like he fires up the Democratic base a little bit, more so than Hillary does.
We'd have him back in the White House helping on the presidency. Good thing, bad thing, or indifferent?
I think it's a great thing.
Great thing. Gonzalo?
Very good thing.
Kind of indifferent about it.
Great thing.
I think it's good.
Good. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I
Excellent.
think it's great.
I think it's great.
Who would do a better job of getting Democrats and Republicans in Washington to work together, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders?
I would probably say Hillary, because she's just has that experience, like Secretary of the Chief. She's just been in Washington for just so long.
She has seen how the system works, so she might have a better chance of getting things accomplished quicker because she understands how to get that done.
I think she'd push her agenda a little more.
She can skip over any learning curve whatsoever.
Here we are, a woman stepping into a predominantly male arena, and I think she felt like she had to hold her own with them instead of just being who she is. And I think she's doing that now.
Let's watch another clip and then we'll talk about it.
I know that when I talk like this, some of the Republicans say I'm playing the gender card. Well, if calling for equal pay and paid leave and women's health is playing the gender card, deal me in.
Ken, what do you think of that?
I think she said some good stuff. I mean, she's charismatic, too. She does have that look, though, and I like Clinton, but she has that look sometimes that just, even when I watch her, she has that smug look, I think.
She looks angry.
I think my opinion is it's a little more general, just in that she speaks articulately about her positions without having that edge and that scorned kind of woman thing. That's a little off-putting.
Just talk a little bit more about that.
I think that can put off a lot of male voters.
Oh, tell me what it's like. What are you seeing that you're seeing?
You know, when she's, I don't want to use the word, but
you can.
It's that like women need to be equal. I mean, I don't feel unequal.
I agree. I don't feel unequal. I don't feel that I've had a job where I feel unequal to my male counterparts. So it's not an issue that speaks to me.
It's a double standard. If it was a guy up there saying that, he would be impassioned.
Do you agree with Shannon that some people might see that?
Oh, yeah.
I like Hillary. I think she's a strong candidate, but she has that.
I don't think you have to have that.
Yeah, and she has that condescending, and I can see that causing gridlock.
She does seem like a little condescending.
And I don't even think it's condescending. That's like a strange word for me. I'm thinking it's more like,
I'm smarter than you.
Yeah, and I'm a woman. I deserve it.
Yeah.
If you
lose that, I'd vote for it. That's my biggest problem.
I think it's not necessary.
Raise your hand if you think that could hurt Hillary Clinton's chances of getting elected.
She's going to push off a lot of men, I think.
People love her or hate her, and that's part of what does that to her, is that attitude or whatever.
So more favorable towards her in Iowa, where she's doing better in the polls, less favorable in New Hampshire, where she's down, maybe double digits, but certainly down. If you were Hillary Clinton and her campaign, what would you think of that focus group?
Well, I think that that she's got to figure out. I think they will interpret the fact that the personal stuff is what everyone's deliberating over, not policy, and they will say that that's been because they've not been able to break through on policy because this email thing has taken up so much space.
I think the question is, can they break through on policy? She's delivered a lot of specific speeches and policies, including in New Hampshire, and yet that group knew nothing about her specifics on college affordability, on economics, on prescription drugs, on drug abuse.
If she's lucky, she can get past this Benghazi hearing and then maybe turn the page.
Yep, okay. Coming up, what a Bernie Sanders White House would look like to people in Iowa and New Hampshire, Democrats. That right after this.
The Bernie bandwagon is rolling. Today, the socialist senator earned his first congressional endorsement, Representative Raul Galva of Arizona. Never mind that Hillary Clinton has been endorsed by 150 members of Congress and governors. For Sanders, this first endorsement, well, that's pretty big. We talked about Bernie's appeal in, yes, the third installment of our Bloomberg Politics Purple Strategies focus groups in Iowa and New Hampshire. Just describe a Sanders presidency.
More people-oriented. The revolution stuff, again, I think is awesome.
He tries to get people involved, as he's not going to do it all. You know, let's all work on this together, and I think that's the kind of thing people want to be involved in.
Kyle, what do you think a Sanders White House would look like?
I think that there would be gridlock regardless of who wins the election.
Sometimes I feel that we bring in somebody as president, somebody new, and I feel like things just don't change. Things sort of stay the same.
You think that would happen if Bernie Sanders got elected?
I do, actually.
Who would do a better job of getting Democrats and Republicans in Washington to work together, Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders?
Hillary Clinton, definitely, yeah.
Anybody think Bernie Sanders would bring?
I do.
You do. So, oh, 4 of you do. Kara, tell me why.
I think Hillary's a little too polarizing. I think that, you know, some of the Republicans just aren't going to like her, or they just don't like her. I think Bernie still has a chance at kind of making some peace there.
Who do you think's spoken to your heart and your head the best on that issue of income inequality of the candidates?
I feel like Bernie Sanders is the
Okay. Gonzalo?
Same, Bernie Sanders.
Kara?
I would agree.
Ken?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie.
I would agree, Bernie Sanders.
Okay. Shannon?
I don't even know that I've gotten to the point yet where I'm zoning into one person or another, but I've been hearing a lot of those things come out of a lot of the candidates.
Okay. Brian, who's been best on income
Definitely
inequality?
Sanders.
Okay. Diane?
I would say Sanders.
Yeah. And Joe?
I would agree that Bernie has the edge on that one.
Well, I think Bernie Sanders is talking about it, and I can't really think of any other candidate besides Sanders that is talking about it.
Bernie Sanders. 3 words or fewer.
I would say knowledgeable and experienced as well.
Exciting.
Forward thinking.
Just another version of hope.
Visionary.
I would say interesting.
Game changer.
I don't mean to disparage Senator Sanders, but he's not maybe sort of classically looking as a candidate. How does he overcome those things that have such appeal?
I think people are just listening to his words and not focusing on appearance.
The things he says are things that I think a lot of people are thinking, and it's, you know, it is charismatic, and it is funny when you look at him, and he's hunched over. I mean, he looks like an old dude. I mean, he looks old, but the stuff he says, he's in touch with, I think, a lot of the things we're thinking about.
But his appearance, good or bad, is very genuine. Like, he's not trying to dye his hair or get a stylish haircut or look fit. You know, he's genuine.
You have concerns about Senator Sanders' age?
A little. I guess, like, my top concern would be, like, having a president just croak mid-term, you know?
Right.
I didn't like John McCain partially because of his age, and I think Sanders is 5 years older than McCain was.
Kara?
No, his age doesn't really bother me.
Right.
I think he seems, you know, in good health. I mean, he's willing to go after it, so he must think that he's okay to do the job.
There's been some discussion in the party and some debate among the candidates about whether there are too few debates. Is there anybody in the room who has a strong feeling that there should be more debates?
I think there should be a few more, just because all the media attention right now seems to be on the Republican side, and I'd like to hear more from the Democratic candidates.
I think what they do now, the 6 are sufficient.
I think more debates would be good.
So does anybody else agree with Senator Sanders and Governor O'Malley and others that there should be more debates? Anybody agree with that?
I do.
Jonathan does. Anybody else, or everybody else is fine with 6?
No, I think 6 is a good.
Yeah.
Everybody else
Good
is
number,
fine with
yeah.
6. Okay.
How many people in the room know who Martin O'Malley is? Put your hand up if you know who Martin O'Malley is. Almost everybody.
3 of you have heard of Martin O'Malley. Do any of the 3 of you know what job he previously held?
I don't.
No.
I really don't know much about him other than he was governor of Maryland, I believe.
I will say that I'm undecided, but my favorite candidate is Martin O'Malley. I think he's articulate, he's personable, and he's got a plan.
Who do you think is going to win the New Hampshire primary?
Let's go with Bernie Sanders.
Probably Bernie Sanders.
Sanders.
Probably Sanders.
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 Who's going to win the Iowa caucuses on the Democratic side?
I'll say Bernie.
Kara?
I would say Bernie, too.
Bernie.
I would say Bernie.
Bernie.
I think Hillary will.
No opinion. I don't know.
Bernice?
Hillary.
I don't know.
Shelby doesn't know.
I'm between Hillary and Bernie.
I have no idea.
Who do you think the Democratic nominee will be for president?
Sanders.
Clinton.
Sanders.
Clinton.
Sanders.
Clinton.
Clinton.
Sanders.
Clinton.
Clinton.
As a betting person, who's going to be the Democratic nominee?
Hillary.
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 I'm not sure.
Hillary.
Hillary, but I would not be surprised if Sanders gets it.
Diane, would you have concern if Bernie Sanders was the nominee about his ability to win a general election?
No.
No. What about you, Bob?
Well, I think he's might be a little liberal for great parts of the country, and I would worry about that.
The fact that he's been branded a socialist probably is off-putting to, at least 50% of the country.
Show of hands, how many people here think that Bernie Sanders' history as a socialist will be a political problem for him in a general election? Show of hands, hold them up if you believe that's true.
Those of you who now think Sanders will be the nominee, have you thought that all along, or are you just beginning to think that more recently?
More recently.
More recently.
What's changed to make you think that?
His ability to connect.
Maybe the Democrats need something new, something that hasn't been tried. Why not Bernie?
So, Mark, if you're Bernie Sanders and his people, are you doing somersaults, cartwheels, or a Snoopy dance over how good those are for him?
The fact that they hear his message and they think he can win are two big things and two advantages he didn't have that long ago.
Little bright spot there for Martin O'Malley in Iowa, just a little bit, but very, very, very good for Bernie Sanders, these bogus groups. All right, we will be right back after this. Tomorrow, sports fans, we will throw you a curveball. We'll have our Bloomberg Politics Purple Strategies focus groups with the Republicans. You'll find out why Republicans like Ben Carson so much, whether Donald Trump's appeal is fading, and just how much trouble Jeb Bush is in New Hampshire and Iowa. You can find and share all of our videos at BloombergPolitics.com.
Big show tomorrow. Lots of interesting things about the Republicans. We'll see you then. Until then, for John and for myself, we say to you, sayonara.